Mainstream media has abandoned the most important murder case in world history. With a plethora of famous crimes being rediscovered by avid Netflix viewers, one might think JFK would be picked up somewhere. It has not. In other words, you have to do it yourself now, which is what I'm doing with this film. If you know nothing about the Kennedy assassination, you might have heard the terms Oswald, who was the accused assassin, conspiracy theory, magic bullet, etc. It's all convoluted, but it doesn't necessarily have to be for the average Joe. This is my attempt to make it make sense for you. In fact, you can just watch the first 2 minutes of this film and stop. Here is author Lisa Pease, aka Supergirl.
Okay, here we go. All right, most of you know in the JFK case, Oswald was tested for nitrates after, he was captured. They tested his hands, they tested his cheek. They found nitrates on his hand, they found no nitrates on his cheek. Well, this is a serious problem, all right, because you can't fire Oswald's rifle and not get nitrates on your cheek. It's not possible. And how do we know this? The FBI shooters tried to do this over and over and over. They even sent the weapon out to the Oak Ridge Laboratory and tried to do it there. All right, you literally cannot fire that weapon and not have nitrates on your cheek. So there is, in this context, no such thing as a false negative. Oswald could not have fired a rifle, therefore Oswald could not have killed Kennedy. I don't care if the single bullet theory is possible or whatever. Whatever happened, Oswald didn't do it, provably by the scientific evidence. All right, and you say, but wait, Bugliosi said you can get a false negative, right? FBI Special Agent Cortland Cunningham, he told the Warren Commission how to do it. Well, if you actually read what Cortland Cunningham said, it's very interesting. So, I thought I'd bring it here for you. He's talking about how he went with another man to figure out how to do this. And he goes, well, we cleaned off the rifle, I loaded it for him, he held it in one of the cleaned areas, and I pushed the clip in so he would not have to get his hands near the chamber. In other words, so he wouldn't pick up residues from it or from the action or from the receiver. And then when we ran the cast, we got no reaction on either hand or cheek. Now I'm going, if Oswald is standing there and somebody else is holding the clip, doesn't that make two people, and isn't that a conspiracy? So we have, even by the FBI and the Warren Commission's own testimony, proof of conspiracy in the Kennedy assassination. And of course, some of the people on the Warren Commission are a little smarter than others, like Norman Redlich, and he wrote to Alan Dulce because, at best, the analysis shows Oswald may have fired a pistol because he did have nitrates on his hand. He said, although this is by no means certain, and that's because you can get nitrates from a book or from cardboard, the very things Oswald handled all day. All right, but Norman Redlich also said there is no basis for concluding that he also fired a rifle. That's right there in the Warren Commission's own records. So done.
You can literally stop here if you want. This is all you technically need to know that the official story of a lone gunman doesn't work. But if you are interested, keep watching.
The second two shots were immediate. It was almost as if one were an echo of the other. They came so quickly. The sound of one did not cease until the second shot. With the second and third shots, I did see the president being hit. I literally saw his head explode. So I felt that the shots had come, as I wrote in my article, from behind me and to my right, which would have been in the direction of the grassy knoll and the railroad overpass.
It is true that a majority of the eyewitness and ear witnesses in Dealey Plaza, those who were asked to voice an opinion as to the origin of the shots, a majority did state that one or more shots did originate up ahead of the limousine from the area up there that at that time was variously referred to as the garden area or the knoll area or the wall area. One woman was running and shouting, "They're shooting the president from the bushes." And that all alludes to that area up there where there's a retaining wall, a wooden picket fence, and shrubbery.
The commission said, Mr. Holland, that no one saw any suspicious activity behind the fence. They said that Patrolman Foster saw no suspicious activity, and then went on to state the same was true of the other bystanders, many of whom made an effort after the shooting to observe any unusual activity. Holland, for example, immediately after the shots, ran off the overpass to see if there was anyone behind the picket fence on the north side of Elm Street, but he did not see anyone among the parked cars, close quote. How long would you say it took you to get behind the wooden fence from the time the last shot was fired?
2 or 2.5 minutes from the time the last shot was fired and the president's car came underneath the triple underpass. And we worked our way through those cars to this particular spot.
In that 2 and 2.5 minute time, Mr. Holland, is it possible that anyone who might have been behind the wooden fence could have escaped, unobserved by you?
It's possible there could have been 3 or 4 people around there that wasn't observed, because that particular spot was just a sea of cars. We had to thread our way from the railroad track to this particular spot through those cars. And it's possible that it could have been a half a dozen people maybe standing over there.
Mr. Bowers, did you see any pedestrians at any time between your tower and Elm Street?
There were, at the time of the shooting, in my vision, only 2 men. These 2 men were standing back from the street somewhat at the top of the incline and were very near 2 trees which are in the area. And one of them, from time to time, as he walked back and forth, disappeared behind a wooden fence, which also is slightly to the west of that. These 2 men, to the best of my knowledge, were standing there at the time of the shooting. One of them, as I recall, was a middle-aged man, fairly heavy-set, without a coat and a white shirt. He remained in sight practically all of the time. The other individual was slighter build and had either a plaid jacket or a plaid shirt on. And he, in walking back and forth, was in and out of sight, but he was in the immediate area. Other than these 2, there were no strangers out on this area. At the time of the shooting, in the vicinity of where the 2 men I've described were, there was a flash of light